Hi, let us talk about grant management today. Uh, on the topic, we are going to look on to what a grant manager is supposed to do in the process of grant management. So, grant managers provide professional services, high quality services that go beyond a typical program director. This is the truth. Even beyond a bookkeeper or a grant writer, they provide a lot of professional services, and because of this, a grant manager is very important for the success of any grant in the organization. If the grant manager is not performing to the expectation, the program may not succeed, or the donors might cut off the funding on the process, especially for grants that are disbursed on installment basis. The donors might stop the funding if they realize that the grant management of the grant is not up to date. So, what must a grant manager do? On other terms, we can say, what must a finance manager do to ensure that the program or the project is a success? So, one, the grant manager must keep the organization out of trouble with the international reporting standards and its donors. Two things: keep the organization out of the problem with of international reporting standard, and also the donors. That means, as a finance manager or grant manager, you need to make sure that you follow correctly and consistently the international financial reporting standards while accounting for the grants. So in this case, as a grant manager, you must be someone who is trained in accounting and finance to be able to understand what the IRS or international reporting standards are all about. If you don't report according to the standard, of course, the donors might not conform to your reporting standard, and they will question the capacity of the people who are managing their money. So, you need to make sure that your reporting is in line with the generally accepted accounting standards, and your reporting is in line with the generally accepted auditing standards, and your reporting is in line with the international reporting standards, and so on and so on. There are very many financial reporting standards. Make sure you are following all the rules while managing your grants. Number two, make sure you are always ready for audit. Donors are always happy to work with the transparent and accountable organizations. The transparency in the organization, the accountability in the organization, all lies in the hands of the grant manager. So, as a grant manager, you make sure that you prepare your transactions in a very transparent manner. You have all your records in a very organized way, that if a donor sends an auditor, an external auditor perhaps, to come and review your books of account, you should always make sure that you are in the safer side, or you should always make sure that there are no questions in regards to what happened to this or what happened to that. That means you need to always be audit ready. As you are working on any transaction, you need to know that this transaction qualifies for audit, and so this is the standard it should be following. I hope we are getting on very well. Okay. Number three, create or continually update policies. This is very, very important. Some organizations have their financial policies, HR policies, procurement policies written in some very many years ago, and they are not updated. They no longer meet the current operational standards. So you, as the grant manager or the finance manager of that particular organization, should make sure that you update those policies to meet current economic conditions. For example, if the organization's procurement policy speaks or says that below £5,000 there will be no procurement process to be followed. Above £5,000, a procurement process must be followed. When I mean a procurement process, I mean requests must be brought in, quotation has to be there, authorizations have to be there, bid analysis have to be there, and then purchase orders have to be issued, and then delivery notes have to be supplied when goods are delivered, and then goods received do not have to be written off, and then invoice, and then payment. So if the policy is saying from 5,000 and below, that procedure is not followed, and now that was maybe in 2011, and now we are in 2020, that policy might be obsolete. Obsolete means not relevant, because already the period from 2011 to 2020, there has been a lot of inflationary changes. That means already the 5,000 which was having value that time no longer have value this time. So the policies need to be updated to meet the current operating economic situations, so that you will always operate within acceptable regulations. So update the policies in the organization, update the finance policies, update the HR policies, update the policies that you think need to be updated for better operation. This is the third thing that you have to do as a grant or finance manager. Make sure you don't compromise when it comes to giving the best policy that will make the organization move forward, or giving the best policy that will ensure that the funds or the grants are accounted for very well. Number 4, support your organization in meeting its policies. Already I said you need to make sure that you update or introduce new policies, but you also need to support the organization in achieving those policies. How do you support the organization in achieving those policies? Some of the policies may not be easy for the staff and the management to adapt. They might need training for them to understand. They might need a lot of regular communication for them to understand. Make sure that you devote your time, you devote all your effort, you devote your skills to make the staff understand these policies. If it means training the staff to understand how some of these policies are supposed to be operated, please do so. For example, if the policy is about introducing a new reporting template, this may require you to train the staff who are going to use that template on how to use the template. So be very, very proactive in making sure that you support the achievement of the policies that you have already introduced or you have already updated. That is very important. Number 5, don't forget, we are on the things that a grant or finance manager must consider to perform very well while managing grants. One of the items that I'm talking about is number 5, assist in creating organization forms. already I've mentioned introducing of templates. Make sure that this is your responsibility. If you see that there are some templates that need to be introduced and they are in line with grant management, they can make sure that they can bridge or close the gap of fraud or error. Introduce those forms or those templates. And for this reason, a finance or grants manager must be very, very well versed with the spreadsheet, Excel in particular. You need to know Excel very well, because you are going to use Microsoft Excel to introduce a lot of tools that you will use to control movement of these funds in and out. So it's very important. You need to assist your organization in creating very many tools, including even reporting templates, because some donors sometimes give money but they don't have reporting templates. They will give you the go ahead to use your own reporting templates. Make sure that the reporting templates that you are going to use for the donor to account for their money is very complete, it's very inclusive, and is very easy to understand. Because as you send your reports to the donors might not need very technical thing that require a lot of questions for them to understand. It should be simplified, but at the same time inclusive. It should include all expenses that are incurred and all the money that comes from the donor, because the donor want to know where their money has gone and how much is the balance that is left. So introduce good templates as a way of supporting your organization. Number 6, educate your staff and the stakeholders on the spending and cost policies of the organization and the donor. Some donors give money based on their restricted conditions. In my previous videos, I have already explained how donor grants have some conditions attached. So one thing you need to do as a grant manager or a finance manager is to understand what are the conditions that come with this funding. For example, the reporting deadlines, budget realignments, sometimes exchanging conversion of funding or funds, from the donor currency to your local currency while spending, and also how the donor want you to be able to account for cash that you have used maybe for running other operational activities, which sometimes is 10% of the total program cost. They normally call it administrative cost, and so on. Some donors will say, okay, the 10% administrative cost, we don't want you to account for it. We don't even need any receipts for it. Just give us accountability of the other percentage of the program related costs. But some donors will want 100% accountability of their money, including the administrative cost, which is either 10% or so forth, depending on the conditions of the donor. So you need to make sure that you understand the donor requirements and you educate your team. Your team should be able to understand what requirement the donor need. Some donors even override the procurement policies of your company, of your organization. They may say, okay, for our policy, for our project, we need the procurement process to be initiated for a procurement of any item beyond $200. And sometimes your organization's policy is saying procurement can be initiated with the full process when a procurement is taking place for an item of more than $500. You see, so you need to understand those differences as a finance manager or as a grants manager. Now, number 7, You also need to take care of your grant drawdowns and expenditure reports. You need to know how to prepare your expenditure reports. Very important. And don't ignore any expenses when it comes to that, because the donor cannot compromise any money that is not reported well. It is sometimes understandable by the donor if the narrative report of the organization is not complete. I mean, if it has errors, it's easy for the donor to understand and they ask for submission of another good narrative report, and then if the financial report is the one that has the error, because the financial report is the money. The narrative report is about the activities that have been taking place. So the donor will ask a lot of questions and there will be a lot of answering, but when it comes to financial report, the donors are very strict. They don't compromise. They always open their eyes wide. So make sure that your expenditure reporting is always accurate and it is without any mistakes. So another item, and the last one that I want you to understand in this lecture, is that you need also to oversee the leadership of your grant programs. As the grant manager, you are the advisor to the entire grant team in respect to that particular grant. So you need to oversee the leadership. You need to advise the leadership. Make sure that at least whatever that takes place within that particular grant, you are always able to give advice on it. So a good structure to put into place as far as human resources and management has in an organization is to make sure that the person who has the capacity to analyze the grants, like for instance the finance manager or the grants manager, is to be given the powers so that he oversees the other managers or other grant managers who are involved in other programmatic activities. Let the finance manager or the grant manager be able to oversee how the other funds are being spent. That way, you can be able to know which expenditure is in line with the reporting principles, and which expenditure is not in line with the principles, and then you can advise. So this is a very brief summary of what a finance manager must do in his or her organization so that your management of grants is successful. I know this video is very helpful to you and to anyone who also is engaged in the area of grant management. Please do share the video and keep following me for more other videos coming. Thank you.